Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, sponsored by ACR Poker, where this Sunday, August 25th, we've got the return of the TPE free roll, a $0 buy-in with $1,000 in guaranteed free prizes to be given away by our friends at ACR Poker. Details can be found in the TPE Discord, so just click the link in the description to get involved in the Discord, where we share the password as well as strategy ideas and thoughts on this very podcast, among many other topics. If you've never played in the TPE free roll, I recommend you do it. It's really fun. We all stream along with Tournament Poker Edge head honcho Derek Killingbird Tenbush on his Twitch channel, and there are giveaways and just good times, lots of fun. And at least in one case, that being the aforementioned head honcho Derek, there will be some drinking. So it's always a good time. So join us this Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, for the TPE free roll. And if you're not yet playing on ACR Poker, you'll first have to get a membership. And it's actually a great time to join. You can get a 100% first-time deposit bonus, up to $2,000, just by clicking the link in the description of this podcast and using the promo code TPE. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am in sunny, halcyon Baltimore, Maryland, where I'm very happy to be bringing you yet another episode of this longest-running poker strategy podcast in the history of all mankind. I'm very excited because in addition to the free roll this Sunday, we're kicking off something called the Supersized Tournament Week. So in preparation for the mammoth OSS XL that's starting next month, with over $40 million in guarantees, by the way, we've got a curated selection of tournaments on ACR with increased guarantees. So we're beefing things up. This supersize has nothing to do with McDonald's, for the record. But for example, on Sunday, this Sunday, the 25th, we've got a $215 buy-in tournament with a $250,000 guarantee. There's also on Tuesday, our $215 PKO has a $50,000 guarantee. And then on Memorial Day weekend, that's Sunday, September 1st, we're going crazy, guys. We've got a $300,000 PKO with a $215 buy-in. We've got a $400,000 Sunday moneymaker, which is our regular Sunday tournament, and that one is only $109 to play. So get in the action, click the link in the description, use the promo code TPE. All right, well, I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Last week we had pretty much an epic episode with a first-time guest by the name of Brent Lee, and Brent is a student of the game, a TPE member, a regular podcast listener, also a student of our friends Andrew Brokus and Alex Fitzgerald. So this guy is obviously delving in and taking poker very seriously, and he damn near won himself a bracelet this summer out in Las Vegas. So if you haven't checked out last week's episode, I recommend you do that before you listen to the rest of this one, simply because we're going to be getting into some concepts that were introduced in last week's podcast episode. Now, if you don't have time to do that, I'll do my best to help you stay up to speed. But let's just say I think last week's episode with Brent Lee is well worth listening to at some point. So one thing that came up was Brent had kind of a general question about playing marginal hands like suited aces post-flop from out of position. And I pointed out that my work with GTO Wizard, which by the way is my favorite tool to use to improve my poker game, GTO Wizard has been basically teaching me that our c-bet frequency when the caller has position goes way, way down. And I'm going to actually give you guys some real life examples of this using the artificial intelligence found on GTO Wizard. So let's look at a flop, guys. In this hypothetical example, let's say we have 80 big blinds. So I just plugged in that we have 80 big blinds. We open from the cutoff. This is an MTT. We're not worried about ICM or any of those other external factors, and just trying to figure out how much we need to be c-betting on the flop. Now, today we're going to be talking about what we call global frequency, which means I'm not actually going to care what your hand is. We're just going to talk about what your entire range of all the hands that you'll ever have in this spot is supposed to do. What is that range supposed to do post flop? So if you raise from the cutoff and get called by the big blind, and you guys see a flop heads up and it's King 8-5 rainbow, so King 8-5 rainbow, and the big blind checks, we are actually betting on the flop 86% of the time. Now, it's all different sizes. Sometimes you bet 1/3 of the pot. Sometimes you bet half the pot. Other sizes are sprinkled in. Mostly we're betting 1/3, but that's not even the point. The point is that we're only checking back 14% of the time. And the rest we are betting some amount on King 8-5. So let's just switch one little thing. And this time, instead of getting called by the big blind, let's say that we were called by the player on the button. So again, we have 80 big blinds effective. We open to 2.3 from the cutoff, and we are called by the button. And the blinds fold, so now we are heads up, but this time we're out of position. Same exact flop, King 8-5 rainbow, and now our global frequency, which remember was 86% when we were in position, now that we're out of position, that global frequency for betting goes all the way down to 39%. That's right, guys. We are checking from out of position 61% of the time. So most of the time, we should be checking. Even a good flop like King 8-5 rainbow, we're checking more often than not. And that's because the caller has a strong range. He has called from in position. And even if he doesn't have that strong of a range, guys, he has position. So whenever you're at a disadvantage, it is usually correct to try to keep the pot as small as you possibly can. So I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to sort of use this example from GTO Wizard just to show you guys that, well, A, I'm not making this stuff up, and B, just, keeping all things equal, how much of a difference it makes to have position or not. So I want to show you one more example, which is a flop that when we're in position, I'm sure all of us are betting always, or almost always anyway. So let's say we have 50 big blinds. This is an MTT example. Again, not ICM considerations, kind of early in the tournament, whatever you want to do. But we have opened from the cutoff and gotten called by only the big blind. So we're heads up in position. And let's say now the flop comes 10-10-5 rainbow, and the big blind checks to us. So what would you do? I mean, personally, I'm always betting this, and I typically don't use the word always very much when we're talking about poker strategies, but those paired boards are just so much better for us than they are for the big blind caller who was getting a good price and all that. So when he checks, I'm pretty much always betting some amount. And let's see what GTO Wizard wants to do. Yes, we have 0% check in this spot. The favorite play is to bet basically just a little over one big blind 65% of the time, and betting 1/3 of the pot about 1/3 of the time, sprinkling in some other random amounts here and there just to be GTO perfect. But yeah, I mean, if you just bet a small amount on all of these paired boards, you're basically going to be printing money simply because it is very hard for a flop like 10-10-5 to have hit any part of your opponent's range. And again, I don't care what you have. You could literally bet this flop 100% of the time. That's what GTO Wizard does in position versus a big blind caller. So let's just make that same adjustment that we made before. We're still doing MTT, 50 big blinds, no ICM considerations. But this time, instead of getting called by the big blind, we're going to be called by the player on the button. So now we are out of position. Again, it doesn't matter what we have. Okay, we're just talking about global frequency, what you want to do with your full range. And guys, you're not going to believe this, but the pre-flop raiser is supposed to check 98% of the time on 10-10-5. And the only thing I changed is now the caller has position. So we need to be checking to that caller almost all the time. I mean, when a solver spits out this high of a number, 98%, you can go ahead and round it up to 100. I mean, 2 out of 100 times, yes, we are supposed to bet some amount, and that amount is varying between 5.5 big blinds to 1.4 big blinds. You know, just simplify things just a little bit, make your life a little bit easier. It's not going to really affect your results materially if you forget that 2%. Let's just make this a full range check to the caller. So we basically went from always betting to always checking just by moving the position of the caller. So I hope that this really helps to drive this point home, and that the next time you are playing in an MTT and you get called by a player in position, you will strongly consider checking on the flop. So hopefully from this you guys can see how much we have to learn by tinkering around with GTO Wizard. And it's very easy to use. Guys, I'm not a techie myself. I'm not good with computers. I can't figure things out. I've never studied coding, and I really struggled with earlier solvers, and some of the really popular ones on the market kind of baffled me. But this one, it's very user-friendly. Even if that user is not a computer guy like me, you can study different spots like the ones we've been discussing. You can plug in actual hands. I like to do global frequency first and then figure out where my hand actually fits into that overall range decision. You can practice against a GTO opponent, and I promise you will lose. You can analyze hands you've already played. Look, guys, this is the best strategy software on the market today, and I've got a deal for you. We have an affiliate link. It's in the description of the podcast. If you click on that link, you'll get 24 hours, unlimited access to all of the wonderful features of GTO Wizard, plus you'll save 10% on your first purchase, but you have to click the link in the description, which is gtowizard.com/p/TPE. All right, now, as I mentioned, I want to do something different this week. I don't want to introduce a new hand. We had our excellent guest, Brent Lee, on last week, and Brent went over a hand that he played in a $1,000 live tournament. He made day 2, and there were 55 players remaining out of the 600 or so who started. Now, I want to use the same hand from last week and plug the decisions that Brent made into the solver and see what the wizard has to say. So again, 55 players remaining. Blinds are 6K and 12K with a 12K big blind ante. At this point, Brent had almost everybody covered. He had 1.4 million, so over 100 big blinds, very deep in a tournament. That's always a great feeling. The average was only around 700 at that point, so he was like 200% average, which is always great. He opened with the ace of spades, jack of diamonds, from the cutoff position to 28,000. Now, I'm sure that GTO Wizard has no problem with this. And yeah, checking that line right now, it's a 100% open, which should not come as a surprise to anyone who's listening to this deep strategy podcast. Yes, we open ace jack from late position, and the solver also doesn't quibble with Brent's sizing, which was 28K. The small blind called, and we're going to see a flop In real life, the big blind also called, but then folded on the flop. And so in order to run this hand through the solver, we're going to pretend that the big blind actually folded pre-flop, full disclosure there. So there's about 90,000 in the middle, and the flop comes ace of diamonds, 10 of clubs, 9 of spades. So ace, 10, 9, rainbow, the small blind checks in flow, and hero bet about half the pot. So let's check the solver output here. And yes, we are c-betting this flop quite a bit. We have top pair, we've got backdoor straight possibilities, and the solver wants to bet pretty big, half the pot or 2/3 of the pot, 91% of the time, very seldom checking or betting other amounts. So far, so good. And then the turn came the 8 of spades, which completed one possible straight. I beg your pardon, completed many possible straights, including 7-6, Jack-7, and Queen-Jack. So our board is now ace, 10, 9, 8 with the 9 and 8 of spades. Hero, by the way, has the Jack of spades. Now, I remember I didn't want to bet this card. I said it's probably a good card for me generally, but I just really didn't want to get check raised, and I was concerned about getting pot committed starting this hand with only 50 big blinds effective. Of course, we have over 100 big blinds, but the small blind started the hand with 600K-ish in his stack. So for those reasons, I did not wish to bet on the turn. So let's see what GTO Wizard has to say. You guys may remember Brent Lee decided to bet about 2/3 of the pot, and the solver does check about 25% of the time, and the rest of the time betting mostly in that 2/3 pot range. So we have to give Brent credit. His play thus far is fully solver approved, but that doesn't make things any easier when Villain decides to go for the check shove, which is exactly what happened here. And then Brent had to decide what to do with ace jack on a board of ace, 10, 9, 8. And the solver solution here to face this shove is kind of a surprising one to me. The overall solution for ace jack offsuit is call 84% and fold 16%. But for reasons I'm really struggling to figure out, when we have the exact hand that Brent had, which is, again, the ace of diamonds, jack of spades, we are folding 100% of the time. So even though we usually call with most of our ace jack, with this exact one, we're folding. When we have the ace of spades in our hand, we are calling pretty much all the time. And when we don't have any spades at all in our hand, we are calling about 75 to 80% of the time. But this exact combo, the ace of diamonds, jack of spades, is a pure fold. And I'm sure it has something to do with that jack of spades. I don't know. I'm really lost. I need you guys to help me out. Hit me up on Twitter at Clayton Comic and let me know what you think is the possible reason why the solver never ever calls with this precise holding. I'm a bit baffled, not gonna lie. I'm pretty baffled here. I'm sure someone out there can figure this out. It's probably more obvious than I'm making it, but yeah, we never want to be calling the shove with the ace of diamonds, jack of spades. And that'll do it for this episode. Guys, please help me out. Find me in the Discord, find me on Twitter, let me know what I'm missing here and why we are so often calling with ace jack off, but we're not supposed to do so with this particular combo thereof. Also, guys, if you haven't yet left a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do that for us. It really helps us become more visible to people who are seeking poker strategy podcasts. And as many of you know, there are so many of them on the market right now. We're trying to compete and keep delivering you this free content each and every week. And one of the best things you can do to help with that cause is to show your support with a nice 5-star review. And so for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, with special thanks as always to our very generous sponsor, ACR Poker, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas Plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Log in intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine,